If you love liberty, declare your independence by signing the Shire Society Declaration at shiresociety.com.
Representative Burridge.
Well, the title is very deceiving, fellow committee members. This House bill is really about trafficking. Everyone you heard earlier today buttresses what I'm here about today. The last, before we adjourned for the summer, we heard testimony here from sex workers. And you'll recall the testimony being this: we would rat out and tell who the traffickers are of children. So why don't we? You might remember the answer. Because of the criminal penalties. They're afraid to go to the cops. You might remember also the testimony from officers. They were the upper echelon. We don't have time to go after folks who are engaged in this practice. And I think there were 25 arrests last year, a number I saw recently. So let's cut to the quick. This is a new study, one's coming up, or you can give them easy access. Who is moving these women around? Who are moving these children around? Excuse me. The women engaged in the business of sex workers. There's honor among people, there's honor among sex workers. And you heard that again and again with people being here and saying that. So I reduced it from a misdemeanor to a violation. You can see it's $100. And that's even a little higher than a violation. Usually a lot of violations are only $50. You can see that further on down. That's one thing. And so, just so you know, I'm not decriminalizing prostitution. It's the intent to go after the child traffickers. And also it returns to the community some sense of ownership, some sense of control. You'll see I have a shaming factor. So the courts can use the community standards, however they wish to do it, for these folks to go out and purchase from these sex workers. They can do public shaming. I remember talking to the drafting attorney. You can carry around a sign. Yes, however they wish to do it. It's open-ended. And usually when judges do this, they ask someone investigating a case for the appropriate sentence, or disagreement between prosecutors, probation, parole. There's a lot of different folks involved who will come up with a suitable public shaming. We even see among our own members what shaming does. Some of the aberrant behavior that's way under the table when they're exposed to exit stage right. And the upcoming research shows that shaming works. So I think it's a fast, quick way to jump in and for these traffickers to not come up here, because they'll be ratted out by the other workers already here. That's my testimony.
Representative Burridge had a question?
Yeah, I'm just curious on line 2.
Okay.
On the back page there, or the next page.
Roman 1?
Yes, it
Okay.
says, misdemeanors crossed out, violations shall be. But then down on line 17, could you explain if that's a separate part of the law? Because I'm reading the same number. It says Class B misdemeanors. Should that be also a violation? I'm just curious.
That's the person purchasing.
This is called
Oh, so line 17 is the
Purchaser.
That's the John, not to be
That's the
confused
John.
with John Burke.
Yes. But then number 2 is the lady of the evening,
Or the man, whoever
or the man of
worker
the
is.
evening.
The worker. One who's, yep.
Okay. All right, now I understand. Thank you for clarifying that.
And I also went to go after the pimps. And the drafting attorney said, it's already here, already present. So I told you, I have trouble with this drafting attorney. And I see with the House bill coming in addresses down the road, addressing folks who are the pimps. But he said, I'll walk you through it. I was already to this guy 4 times. And I'm happy to just ride with this. This is instant, something that can occur right away. So we have all these internet, all kinds of difficulties going after these people who traffic. Let's go, he's one. And they can do it and feel, yeah, there's a thing called a Nordic model. It's all, your testimony, and it's all good. It's all good. I welcome it. But this is something that can be accomplished right away. Anything we can do to minimize the harm just even one day. You hear that lady today. Right? And folks who are with me in the summer who attended this. McNally takes wonderful notes. She'd be an excellent clerk, no matter where she went. I was impressed. She had big discipline. But this all points, this is a fast, good, quick way to do it without a lot of confusion.
Representative Testament has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You eliminated the paragraph F, which is the John's, in the case, person who agrees to pay for sexual contact. I'm trying to understand why that would make it easier for a prostitute to turn over a trafficker.
Because they added a new paragraph to substitute for it.
Where?
That's new paragraph number 2.
Line 15.
Line
Okay.
15.
Right under it.
You're making jump to the hoops. Good for you,
Okay, got it.
Representative. Short, sweet, not difficult. These women will come forward and testify. You heard this. They're very believable. Yeah, the woman today, hot crap, that takes guts. I mean, and she was rather modest at that. You know, she's 14. Oh, and the other ladies we heard, they were all, I think all ladies we heard this summer at this, really courageous. And there's also another, I'm involved in another House bill with McConnell. He's a Republican Swansea in federal and state legislation, drafting something to go to Congress regarding the internet, that those folks, same folks addressed that we should do on that. He has that bill going forward.
Gagnon has a question.
Yeah, I just need, I do this all the time, and it automatically needs clarification. Line 5 and 6. Section B says, induces or otherwise purposely causes another to violate subparagraph A, or transports another into or within the state with the purpose of promoting or facilitating such blah, blah, blah. Isn't that,
That's current statute, by the way.
yeah, but isn't that the Mann Act? If you, like, say if a pimp transports someone from Massachusetts to New Hampshire, isn't that a federal crime now, under the Mann Act?
It probably is.
So why would it be a violation? That's how I interpret this being a violation rather than a higher offense.
Well, the Mann Act is a federal law.
Yes,
This
but under
is
state law, it would be a violation rather
It
than a...
depends on how it's prosecuted. Who the prosecutor is.
So maybe it's for the chair. So line B, induces, okay, we'll assume the pimp is bringing someone to prostitute with a customer, and that person who is inducing, who is pushing this gal or this guy to do an act, it would just be if he or she gets nabbed, it would be just a violation. I'm not talking about the prostitute.
Well, that's who
I'm talking
induces.
about, you know,
That nice, cute little look at you.
that's not what I'm talking about.
Well, that $100 fine that's in this bill would be a reduction from the $1,200 that would be under a misdemeanor.
I guess my problem is,
It does reduce
it seems to me that the pimp, it's just gonna be a violation, whether he's got a whole string, or the person transporting across state lines, even though it becomes a federal act, that the state law would be less than. It would seem to me that I would want to nail those people way more than I would like to go after the prostitute.
Well, currently the fine is $1,200 under a misdemeanor. Not a jailable offense.
If you're a pimp, it's not a jailable offense?
Not according to this.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Representative Gagny, the drafting attorney was saying it's already there, and it's there in another statute. I can't point that out where it is. And my goal was to get the traffickers, get what we can get. That's the most global. You heard me mention Australia, because they go shopping. They go shopping around the world. They have scheduled little trips, and the fastest we can get that out there, don't come to New Hampshire.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, again, I'm confused. I heard you, what you had to say. Could you explain it to me again, how this is going to get people to get turned in for trafficking?
Sure.
By those who are being trafficked?
Sure. Sex workers, prostitutes, ladies of the day or evening, however you want to call it, they testified they're upset by this too. They know where it is, they know what's going on, and they will rat out the cops like that. They'll let the cops know who's doing it, where they are, the location. Must be a house, a property shared, a location, or a street, or they're in a car, vehicle being transported with these youngsters. They know, and they don't like it.
I'll talk to you after. I'll talk to you.
Okay, sure.
Maybe that's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
Representative Burke.
Well, she was first.
I'm sorry.
It still seems to me that she didn't name it.
Representative Shanley?
Oh, it doesn't matter. Let Representative Burke go
Okay.
first.
I guess two questions on that then. I almost lost my train of thought. So line 17 is added, that's the new paragraph. What is it currently for a John to pick up somebody, and not to be confused with John Burke?
It's a misdemeanor.
It's still the same. So nothing.
Class B misdemeanor is,
Fine.
has jail time with it.
And what was it before? What is it currently?
Misdemeanor.
With no jail time.
Well, it's just a misdemeanor.
And
Class
this,
B misdemeanor is a specific.
so now it's going to be up then.
Yeah.
All right, and then the other was, can't these individuals just call, what's that hotline that's a private thing? You know, I could call up and say, you know, my friend Delmar, I think it is,
Go here.
you know, has a funky haircut. And,
Sure.
you know, the police, you know, and then they wouldn't know it was me. You know, can't they do that already?
The testimony I heard in this committee, being a clerk is interesting. And Representative Fish isn't here. I once asked him this question 7 years ago. How come you never ask questions? He said I get my answers by listening to other people's questions. Just by sitting in the clerk's office, maybe I hear differently. This is the testimony. They never said, oh, I could call. I never about to sell. That's how I'm addressing your question. We want to tell, however it is, however the relationship they may have with the local police. I don't know. I'm not there. But I know what they're willing to do and what they want to do, and why they're fearful of not doing it. That was verbalized very clearly. I heard that.
All right. Thank you.
Representative Shanley.
Thank you. I know, Representative Burridge, that you always do your homework and you always bring to us, and I'm serious, very good bits of evidence-based research. So I'm going to assume that you've done that kind of work here. Part of your research was listening to the folks who were testifying. Because I was kind of expecting in the bill that you would have provided that more direct incentive to come forward, and you don't, and I understand the reasoning for that. So I'm going on too long. So my question to you is, do you think people will be, is $100 low enough to make the reward worth the risk? You know, is that, so I guess if we were to lower this charge and make it a violation with $100, are we actually, how did you determine that that's the number we need to make a change in behavior?
Typically, misdemeanors are associated with a maximum penalty of jail time. Felonies typically is a year or longer, and they go to the state pen. That's the belief on the street, that's the public perception, that's close to reality. Violation is a violation. It's just a fine. Boom, bibbidi bobbidi boo. This is a participant observation. That's a form of accepted study, what these women have agreed to say. Anecdotal, sure that is. It's not outcomes based. I didn't have blind studies. I didn't have control groups. But just for the committee's interest, I found this in the economy.
See,
In
I
the
knew you'd
economy.
have something.
Well, it's just for general information because there's just another bill coming here called the sex business. And it talks about the cost. I never would have known that. How much it costs to go different countries to get these services performed. How do you measure that? How do you find that stuff out? I'm curious about how you find it out. That's my kind of weakness in life. And I'll be glad to give this to the next people at the study commission so you can see what the cost is. And just happen to have that.
It's like somebody's black book. Any other questions?
Thank you.
None. Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks.
Representative Edwards. Opposing the bill. By the way, did you think out a pink card, Representative Burridge?
Yes, sir, I will do that. That's 2 days in a row. Boy, that's Sorry.
You may.
Hello again. Okay, so I'm going to try to keep it brief. I really appreciate the intention behind this bill. There is obviously I think it's laudable and very realistic to have the goal of getting sex workers and police working together to identify trafficking victims, working together to identify human traffickers. That is something that is doable. And unfortunately, this is not the way to do it. The way to do that, which is the position of the Alliance Against Trafficking, the Open Society Foundations, Amnesty International, all of these organizations say that, who have done the studies and have interviewed sex workers in the United States and everywhere else around the world, have said that the evidence-based way of doing that is actual decriminalization. And this isn't it. So there are just a few problems with this bill. First, it was written without input from the group that it's supposedly trying to help. Sex workers were not consulted on this bill. The most vulnerable sex workers, who are those engaged in survival sex, can't afford a $100 fine. Like, they are literally on the edge of, you know, trying to feed their families. They don't have $100 for a fine. So they are not going to be willing to go to the police to report crimes against them if it means that they can't eat for the next week. So, no, I don't like this idea of the fine, of the $100 fine. Also, making it a violation instead of a misdemeanor means that indigent sex workers would no longer have the right to a public defender because it's not a criminal charge. So it doesn't solve the problem that sex workers are afraid to go to the police to report crimes against them. It perpetuates the stigma around sex work, which is the cause of violence. And finally, there's this idea that, you know, well, who we really should be going after is the clients. And I understand that viewpoint. The problem is, if you talk to sex workers, they don't want their clients shamed and arrested because that takes away their source of income. Nobody wants their source of income taken away. If you don't want people in the sex industry, you have to give them better options. You can't take away their least bad option. That never improves anybody's life. You've got to give them better options. So, I guess those are the main points that I wanted to make. I should also add that I am again hearing this conflation of between traffickers and clients. Trafficking under the federal definition involves force, fraud, or coercion. A client who makes an agreement with a sex worker, you know, a contract basically where they agree, you know, I'll do this for this amount of money. Is that good for you? Yes, that's good for me. Okay, that is a consensual arrangement between adults. And it is not the same thing as trafficking. You might not like it, but let's be like clear about our definitions here. So I reduced it to like one sheet with bullet points and a really nice quote about how going after the clients actually takes away the bargaining power that sex workers have and the ability to negotiate for their own safety. This is from the Amnesty International report, so I'm going to give you that now that you've had to hear me and not read it from the page while I'm talking to you. Okay, yes, I can do it.
Representative Lowell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
It took me 3 years to know Laura's last name.
In your mind, would it be possible to craft a bill similar to what we have for people who call in overdoses so that they're not prosecuted? Is that, could we do a similar thing with prostitution?
Right, so I've been thinking about half measures, about things that could potentially solve some of the problems, even if we can't go all the way and solve all the problems. And I think a 911 immunity law saying you will not be charged with prostitution if you call 911 to report a crime. Yeah, that's something that that the sex workers' rights activists who've been working on this for decades, that is one half measure that they could get behind. They can't get behind this. But 911 immunity, definitely.
Yes.
Why hasn't this happened?
I don't know. Yeah.
I'd be interested.
Yeah, and that would be, since it's on a similar subject and with a similar goal as this, maybe an amendment, that would be kind of cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That line 17, I'm going to go back to that.
I actually don't have the bill right now.
The Class B misdemeanor, which is jail time, but I think, if I understand correctly, I'm still a little confused on it, is now just a misdemeanor, which is no jail time. How do you feel on that? Currently, the client, can't see jail time, but with this passing, they're going to see jail time. If I'm reading it right, I'm still confused. Oh, it's not?
I'm pretty sure, I thought it was, maybe I get Class A and Class B mixed up. Class B is no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So Class B is no jail time?
Yeah.
Currently, there is jail time? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Clarification.
I see no other questions.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Mr. Freeman.
Ian Freeman, one of the co-chairs of the New Hampshire Liberty Party. I was reading this last night, looking at the bills to see, what I should go and look at today. And as I started reading it, I thought, my goodness, I'm actually going to agree with Delmar Burridge on something. And then I kept reading it and I realized, no, I'm not. I like the first part of the decriminalization of being a sex worker, but I don't like the second part of continuing to criminalize being a John. And I'm also similarly confused as Representative Gagny on this. I don't see what this has to do with sex trafficking at all. This just seems to be a mixed, confused bill that is ultimately just going to continue prohibition. If we're concerned with sex trafficking, and I think that we should be concerned of any kind of human trafficking or slavery of any sort, whether sexual or not, then the best way to address that situation is to end prohibition. Now, prohibition is, I've talked about this issue many times, whether it's prohibition of guns, which we don't have here in New Hampshire, thankfully, or prohibition of drugs, which we do have, or prohibition of sex. What you always find out, and we should have learned from history, is that when you prohibit something, it goes underground. It doesn't go away. It goes underground, and then criminals are the people who sell that thing. In the case of sex work, if you prohibit it, now again, most sex workers are consensual. They're doing business by consent with their clients. They're not sex trafficked, they're not sex traffickers. But when you have prohibition, you're more likely to see sex trafficking going on because, again, the whole industry of sex work has been driven underground by the prohibition. And this is the oldest profession. It hasn't gone away. Prohibition hasn't worked. No amount of throwing people in a jail cell has stopped the desire of human beings to want to have sex, and some of them want to pay for it because for whatever reason, they don't feel like having any other obligations to the person they're having sex with, or whatever the reason for it is. So if you really, really, really want to actually end sex trafficking, or at least reduce it significantly, then end prohibition entirely and amend this bill to end all criminal penalties for consensual sexual activity. Because if it's legal for me to have sex with somebody and it's legal for me to do business, then why should it be illegal for me to have sex with somebody and do business? Like, it just doesn't make sense, especially in the live free or die state. And so, we see the unintended consequences from prohibition. You guys have the power to do something about it, and I hope you'll consider actually ending prohibition, or at the very least doing a decriminalization across the board for both Johns and for prostitutes. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
We'd like to invite you to visit freekeen.com. Freekeen.com features audio, video, and blogs chronicling the transition to a voluntary society. Freekeen.com also has comments and discussion forums so you can be heard. Freekeen.com.
I should be in Keene, New Hampshire with the Free Staters.